What's up, everyone? Welcome to The One Club, a podcast for visionaries, builders, and purpose-driven individuals committed to growth, clarity, and meaningful relationships. This isn't motivation. This is transformation. Here we talk business, we talk personal growth, we talk relationships, honestly, intentionally, and without filters. Because building a life bigger than yourself requires more than ambition. It requires standards, discipline, and the courage to become who you're meant to be. If you're here to just consume, this isn't for you. But if you're here to build, to raise your standard, and maximize the potential you were given, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Louis Xavier, and this is The One Club. Let's get into the show. Guys, welcome back to another episode of the One Club podcast. I am genuinely so excited for today's guest. We have a true gem of a man, someone that I have a pleasure of calling a friend. Even though we may not look like brothers, I feel like he's a brother from another mother. And I met him and connected with him the first time a couple months ago in a mastermind in Punta Cana. And now he's a guest on our podcast. He is kicking ass and taking names in the real estate space. I'm bringing to you no other than Christian Cardamone. How we doing, brother?
Dude, man, I'm doing so good. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here on this first season. And the fact that we met in Punta Cana and now I'm here just shows you that your dreams can come true.
Amen to that, man. Amen to that. Did you like that little improvised intro?
Yeah, man, that was great, man. I'll try and stay humble today, but thank you for just giving me a good little pump.
That's amazing, man. Thank you for joining us. So let's get straight into it. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So we connected briefly at the mastermind. We were doing a lot of like internal reflecting, workshopping, and really like breakthroughs for ourselves internally. And I got a good grasp of who you are, what it is you do. But for the audience that's tuning in right now for the first time, who is Christian Cardamone?
Christian Cardamone is, let's start off by, obviously I'm one of the more handsome gentlemen that you'll meet in your life. Thank you. We are brothers from another mother. I am a real estate, I guess, connoisseur. Really, I'm a developer, a broker, and an investor. And I've been doing it since back in college. I got into real estate and have always just had an eye for it and a desire to kind of play that game. So now, fast forward 1,000 years, I live in Wilmington, North Carolina, on the beach. I'm the owner of Aloha Wilmington Real Estate. We have another division, Aloha Wilmington Property Management. We have another division that does Aloha Wilmington Development and Construction. And then I also own a couple small businesses and happily married and have two amazing young kids. So that's who Christian Cardamone is today.
That's amazing. I think that if one day in the dictionary where you look up definition of Christian Cardamone, I feel like you are truly the identity of like a builder, which is the audience that we speak to, the true 1%, because you're not only successful when it comes to business, but you are also successful as a man, as a husband, as a father. And, through your ventures, you've been able to create that life of true wealth for your family. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely, man. And I appreciate you saying that because not everybody recognizes that, but I think it doesn't come without a builder is a great word. It's a great adjective and I would identify with that because I am constantly building. I'm constantly striving. I'm constantly learning. And I really think that's the biggest key to life is always at every level you get. At one point when I was younger, I always thought I wanted to be like the smartest guy in the room, And I remember specifically saying that at one point and reflecting back on that just like pains me now to have ever been in that mindset. And that was kind of before my like awakening, really, that we're always building, we're always growing. And whether it's financially, whether it has to do with your faith, whether it has to do with your family, you have to constantly continue to expose yourself to people that are smarter than you, that have been around the corners that you're headed towards, that have slipped and fallen on the spots that you're getting ready to step in front of. And so building it's a verb also because you're constantly building. You never
Yes.
are done building until they throw you in the dirt.
Of course, man. I think to tag along that, the reason why I use the adjective building or builders to identify the people who are like-minded with the One Club is because at 14, my first mentor, Tony Turkset, he owns Hummus Fit. It's a meal prep company. They're actually nationwide now. But there was something that he shared with me maybe a couple months into our relationship, where he was like, Louis, remember this for the rest of your life. And it was, a working iron will never rust. And I think, to your point, that we're always constantly, like, we will forever be building, because if you think about it, the builder that is just starting off in their business or in their venture, the builder who lost it all and now is reinventing themselves, and the builder who exited the company and now has all the finances, they're still most likely going to build something else. It may not be a business venture for the person who just exited the company. Now
Yeah.
maybe something that's philanthropy related, but we're always building in different aspects of our life. So that's why I love identifying people who are like-minded to the One Club as
Mhm.
builders, because we all genuinely are.
Yeah, and that's really cool, and that is gonna become a very powerful organization right now with the direction that you're headed with it, Lewis, because not everybody is a builder, right? Some people just they might just push some stuff together, and that's enough for them, and that's okay. The world, there's different strokes for different folks, but then some people strategically build, and they want to continue to go up, and I like what you said, because sometimes it is a financial build that we're working on, and then you might get to that certain level and realize that now I need to build this faith arm of my life, or I need to build this family arm of my life. And so it is constant. It's, it's a forward exercise, but if you get to a certain point and then you stabilize, and there's a there's a big dichotomy between when is enough, when
Yes.
should I keep building, is too much money, not enough money, do you have to build for the sake of building? But at a certain point, it's really important just to think, in my mind, in my story, I have to continue to build and produce. I feel like that's why we're here, to produce and contribute, and just to sit around having the talents that we have, that we possess, having the skills that we have, to not put those to work for the betterment of something. It seems
Yes.
like a squanderance.
I couldn't have said it, or you couldn't have said it any better. I completely agree with that, man. And I appreciate you being able to see kind of like the long-term vision, the long-term light at the end of the tunnel for what it is I'm trying to create here. And it's honestly, man, through this journey, or through this venture developing itself, I am eager and very excited to continue to connect with guests like you, because you guys are the exact uh person that we want to contribute, to pour into the bucket of the One Club, to help the younger generation, the men reinventing themselves, or even the people looking to scale in other pillars of their life. So thank you for that. um I want to segue here. You mentioned that you were in college, and that's when you got your first taste of real estate. That's when you were introduced to the real estate world. Let's give some more context to the people listening. What were you doing prior to real estate? What did your early life look like?
Well, what I was born in upstate New York and lived up there till I was 16. So I'm a Yankee and a New Yorker. But came down here, went to high school, and then college subsequently, because I had just kind of gotten here. So, but before that, I was in the service industry. I worked at restaurants, and I worked at Outback Steakhouse for like 5 years, and it was great.
Really?
It got me through college, helped me stay, eating half off. But after that, I went and started as a bar back, and then a bartender. So I was in the nightlife after that, because was tending bar for a couple years, and then had my first taste of kind of entrepreneurship as well. I realized how much money I was making for the guy that owned the club, and said, "Man, I think we could do this ourselves." And so, got a couple of friends of mine, bootstrapped some money, and we went and opened a bar literally right across the street. And
Look
that
at
was
that.
that was when I was off to the race, because before real estate, it was service industry, hospitality, and I love delivering that experience to people. And I was also a musician, so our band got to play there. We got to meet chicks. I mean, it's kind of a
Nice.
win-win. But that was kind of before real estate. And then when real estate came into the equation, I kind of merged them together, because I used that. I understood the value of relationships and meeting people and having a platform. Like, as a bartender, you got a captive audience when there's people in front of you for
Right.
2 or 3 hours, and I kind of parlayed that into my real estate sales business, and that's kind of what
There you
helped
go.
me get off the ground initially.
That's amazing, man. I think, well, I'm reading a book right now. It's called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Have you ever heard of that book?
Yes.
It's a great read, and I've learned a ton. I actually came out with a new series for the One Club called 1 Minute Wisdom. where I'm able to extract some of the best lessons from the books, saving people like you maybe time from reading 400 pages and just extracting the best lessons, the best insights from the book.
Yeah.
So the people listening to it, they can apply it to their lives. And Naval, in the first chapter, touches upon something called specific knowledge. And he says that specific knowledge is usually something that you identify in your upbringing. It's something that people tell you, hey, you're really good at this, or you have a talent when it comes to this, or this comes to you very naturally, or you can even say that to yourself.
Mhm.
Do you feel that you've identified those things in your upbringing that could be categorized as specific knowledge?
Yeah, I think the first thought that comes to mind is I was always told, I'm the guy that could like sell snow to an Eskimo, right? I was
There you
always
go.
like a salesman. Like when I was a kid, I started CMW Sporting Goods and Radical Rentals. And I would rent out my ski boots and like my skateboards and stuff to other kids in high school or this is like middle school. It was insane. But I was always into sales. But I think if I had to distill it down to like a specific single my gift probably feels weird to say that it's probably it's communication, and it's the
Mhm.
ability to it's not to sell somebody something, but it's the ability to get into rapport with somebody and then make them feel comfortable enough to want to continue the interaction. And then if it does go in by way of some sort of professional revenue, then it does. And if it doesn't, then it just
Right.
becomes. But I've always been a big believer that communication is the strongest skill set you can have
Yes.
in the professional world across every spectrum, because if you're going to be doing anything, building anything, you need to be able to communicate that to your clients, to your team. You need to be able
Mhm.
to cast a vision for whatever it is that you're
Mhm.
building so that you can bring folks along with you and help you, because no one does any of these things alone.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more, man. And as you were speaking, I thought back to my high school graduation. I'm not going to name drop here, but I was at graduating class, the day of graduation. The valedictorian steps on the stage, and this guy is the 1% of the intelligent people. Like aced his SAT, all the tests that you can name it. But he couldn't speak. Like he was a very socially shy person, couldn't really put a sentence together. Obviously, he had maybe some internal struggles. But I thought to myself, like, dang, for my life, I'm like, do like all the smarts that you have in your brain, like, what is it if you can't articulate it? You
Mhm.
know? And like you said, like if you don't have strong communication skills, how are you supposed to sell the outcome to your clients? Let alone sell the vision to your employees, let alone sell yourself on what it is you're trying to build long term, you know? So the reason why I ask you that question on specific knowledge is because I'm in a season of reinventing myself and trying to create something great for myself. And I'm like, okay, I'm given these deck of cards to play my life with. I can't play my life on based on the deck of cards that I wish I was given. I got to play the game with what I have in front of me. So
Yeah.
when I'm reading this book, Naval talks about, hey, identify your specific knowledge or knowledges and hone in on that. That's what will bring you the most amount of success. So I look back and I'm like, what are some things that I believe I do very well? And it's not just a one person thing. Like I've been identified this. It's not like I'm full of myself. I'm really good at this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But similar to you, it's been communication. I feel like I've always been a very creative person. I've always been like sales oriented. And it's cool to now reflect that in my upbringing, ventures that were related to those specific knowledge bases, I always did the best in. So
Mhm.
now I'm like, okay, cool. Let me take that with a grain of salt. Now, when I move forward, that's my highest and best use trait. So let me find a way to delegate the things that are unrelated to that and focus on activities or inputs that require that skill because that's where I will excel the most, you know? So that's why I want to ask you that because I believe everyone has a set of a specific knowledge base that maybe subconsciously or consciously they use to direct themselves in career or business.
Yeah, it's a great point. The only thing that I would say, Louis, to counter that in one respect is that it's okay if your audience is, I'm quite a bit older than probably most of your audience, but it's also okay to not know what that is just yet, because part of this experience that we're all having right now is figuring out what does feel right, what doesn't, and then leaning
Right.
into it for a period of time and seeing if it's something worth developing. Because there's, the world needs all different kinds of people, like we were talking about a minute ago. And so if you're not a good communicator, that doesn't mean you can't be incredibly successful doing something else. It just means if you can identify that sooner than later, then you can compress time and not waste a lot of time trying to do something that doesn't feel right. Because like you said, anything that does come naturally to you is always going to give you a leg up and help you advance the ball a lot quicker.
Yes.
It's also important though to recognize on the flip side of that though, if I love like gardening and gardening makes me feel nice,
Yeah.
if I want to make a lot of money in life, gardening's probably not going to be the
Right.
avenue. So you also have to recognize that it has to align with what your goals are.
Yes.
Because
100%.
because I could just do gardening as a hobby, but I'm not going to lean into my life and trying to monetize my life and raise a family and build an empire by gardening. Someone will, but it's not me.
Yeah. At least not in this day and age, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, man. So that's super interesting, and I like how you have that counter because it definitely does challenge someone listening, their beliefs, and their way of living. I want to maybe extract as much context of your upbringing as possible because right now I'm speaking to the viewer, maybe the 18, 21-year-old who doesn't come from money and wants to be an entrepreneur and be a millionaire and all the things that follow that. Do you come from did you have a fund growing up? Are you a trust fund baby?
No, no. I mean, I would say I'm a trust fund baby with regards to the support and love that I had,
Mm,
and I was able to tap it early, but financially, not at all. I mean, I will be the first to say I was born with two of the best parents you could ever ask for, have set the most incredible example, married for over 50 years, have always been entrepreneurial, always owned their own businesses, and have done nothing but support me and my siblings and lift us up. So in that regard, yes, I was born filthy, filthy rich, and the world doesn't stand a chance. But financially, no, we're like middle class. We were small town in upstate New York, and no one gave us anything. My parents both also had to earn everything they ever achieved, and I was never given anything. I had to work for my dad since I was can barely remember. I remember he paid me $2 an hour, and I paid for everything I ever bought. I paid for all of my college, bought all my vehicles. The only thing I was given was support and love, which I would take any day over all the other material things.
there you go. So you truly contribute to the statistic of 77% of millionaires in the US are self-made millionaires.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
There
so
you go.
because I didn't have a head start. I had my share of setbacks as well, and so if anything, I was probably behind the 8 ball. But I mean, and I sincerely, earnestly mean this. If I can do it, anyone listening to this can do it.
There you go. So let's talk about some detail in regards to the hospitality business. Let's touch up on that briefly, and then let's segue into the bridge from hospitality to real estate. So when you said that you were working as a bartender for that bar for a couple of years, you then opened up a bar across the street, right?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Well, I had the fortune of working in a bar and learning it's not rocket science. It's really hospitality, and everyone loves alcohol, so it's kind of like it's the best case scenario, and unlike food, alcohol is one of the highest profit margins around.
Yeah.
So it's a small town, so we kind of got to know everybody, saw a
Okay.
space that was available. It was like a failing bar across the street. And I knew the guys that were running it and got wind that they wanted to sell their share of their interest in the lease. And it had like its own name and everything. And so we just decided to pool our money together and buy it from them. And I think it might have been $50,000. So
Look at
there was
that.
four of us. So I had three partners, three of my best friends at the time, and we all put together like I think $12,500 and put it into a McDonald's brown bag. Walked in, handed it to them, and they gave us the keys. It was as someone who now brokers businesses for sale for people, it was a very unusual transaction, and it doesn't usually go down like that. But that's what happened,
Yeah.
and it all worked out. And we ran it for 7 years, and then we sold it.
Look at that. The bar was an actual success. You guys were able to operate it as a business,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that.
it was great. It was called The Whiskey. It was at the absolute epicenter of our historic downtown. It was a live music venue, kinda like a dive bar. We had everything that you would have in a nightclub. It was a lot of fun, but we made it through, no major lawsuits. Everyone survived.
There you
Couple
go.
tax issues we worked out, and then I got a couple staples in my head from one fight one night, just trying to kick some folks out at the end of the night. It didn't go my way.
Yeah.
Five me versus 5 Marines.
Oh
But,
my goodness.
but I'm a better man for it,
Yeah,
so it's all
there
good.
you go, man. There
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
So when you owned this bar, how old were you?
I was it was 22?
20? Oh, we were the same age.
Yeah,
Wow, look at that. Cool. So you were able to sell that. You sold it when you were how old?
about 7 years after that. So
7 years.
we had it for a couple of
No,
years, yeah.
cool. So what made you go into real estate after that? Like, because I feel going from the hospitality business or owning a bar to then going into real estate, it's like maybe like a night and day kind of difference. Like, what directed you to go into real estate?
So it occurred to me really quickly, Lewis, the size of the bar dictated how many people we could put in the bar. The number of people in the bar can only spend so much money based on the amount of time they're in there. So I realized quickly that even though this thing had a lot of potential, it was gonna cap out at a certain point. We can
It
only
wasn't
make so much.
scalable.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was a nice venue, had a great reputation, but it was gonna have a ceiling. And there's 4 mouths to feed. We have 4 partners, right? So it was never gonna be my pathway to retirement, and I knew that. I also knew I didn't want to be around alcohol, loud music till 3 in the morning. I just didn't like that. Some of the other elements of that didn't. As I was getting older, I realized quickly I didn't want to make that my life. And I also knew that real estate, my first year in was tremendous. I had rookie of the year. I made 6 figures. I went from, making bar money to 6 figures. And I realized that the commission was an untapped resource to go as far as I wanted to push it, really.
Right.
And so the biggest piece of advice I give folks now is get in the position to receive commission.
Yeah, right. Because it has no ceiling. You basically maybe the pro and con is you eat what you hunt, but
Mhm.
that's also the biggest blessing of it is that there's no limit to it. It's infinite kind of
Yeah,
thing.
it is. And I always needed that. I needed a longer runway, not just to know that like, hey, I'm gonna make like 50 grand a year and this is what's gonna be like from now on. Now I've got to budget that and I've got to work to get 50, where it's like, I just made 4 times that. Now I'm gonna make next year I'll make more than that. And it was just, to me, that was always the carrot that was dangling to try and reach for, see how far I could push it.
Right, right. Something you said when you were describing your lifestyle at the bar and what maybe helped guide you into the whole venture of real estate and what you do now was identifying the environment you didn't want to be part of in the long term, which was maybe the women, the alcohol, and being up until 3 a.m. Do you think that was maybe one of your first times being introduced to like a long-term vision? And the reason why I asked this is because we're both Go Bros. We're both part of Go Abundance, and a big thing in their model is 5-year vision, and it's something that I've been really intentional with for my own life because I feel for people in my position, I'm 22 that are like, hey, I want to start a business or I want to be an entrepreneur. For me, it's helped me filter out what to do or what to start when I kind of determine my 5-year vision. What life am I trying to live in the long time and on a long time horizon, and then
Mhm.
kind of do reverse math in terms of what business or what vehicle can grant me that life. Do you think for you going from bar owner to real estate, is that when you started to think about, hey, what's my long-term vision for my life?
Yeah, it was exactly at that point in time because I realized quickly the unique thing about a bar is you have access to some of the greatest people and then some of the dregs of society, right?
Trust me,
So
I know.
I got to see I got to see really, it almost started like in a reverse order because I first saw who I didn't want to become, and I made mental notes of that. And then I had other friends who owned other bars, and I said, that were older than me, and I said, so they've owned a bar for 10, 15 years. I looked at their life. I said, do I want that life? I don't think I want that life. So okay, let's put that over here. So now I got to see what was working, what didn't work. And I saw what is your life. If you're going to be a primary business bar owner, I just saw what that path looked like. And I said, that's
Mhm.
cool, but I can do better than that. I want more
Right.
than what that can offer me. So I did get a first taste of success through real estate and got to see the type of people um, I was working with, talking to, meeting, engaging with. I got to see a different caliber. Not that there's nothing wrong. They're apples and oranges, but the folks in the industry, those were the elbows I enjoyed rubbing with more because there's elevated conversations. It was just a different goals, different plans, different everything. And so it piqued my interest. And I said, I can go farther, I can do more if I choose this route. So let's go down this rabbit hole and see where this takes me for now.
That's great. Would you say that you are living your long-term vision now? From the thoughts you had when you were owning the bar and segueing into real estate, are you living your long-term vision now?
Yeah, 100%.
There you go. And I know I can get a feel of the type of man you are. There's probably now a new long-term vision now for your life, right?
There is, and
There
it's
you go.
a work in progress, but it is, and I try and recast it every year, but I didn't start paying as much attention to it in the most intentional ways until just a few years ago. It was always something, you want to have goals, you want to have vision,
Right.
but I got really intentional about it a couple years back, and that has helped me take giant steps towards actually getting there faster. And so that's something that I really encourage folks to do and to think about because while you're having so much fun at a young age, and you can also be doing this vision casting, this planning. It's really important. And that's what separates the people who are just here having a good time and working, and every day is a new adventure
Right.
versus the people that are doing that. But also when they go home, they're staying up later and they're
Mm,
deciding what they want the next couple of years and moves to look like. And so it's important to be mindful of that because no one's
yeah.
if you don't take the action and plan it, then you're at the mercy of the wind. It's like being a boat out at sea and you've got your sails are just flapping and you're just going to go where the current takes you, where you pull the halyard tight, you draw the sail, and now you can harness the wind and go in the direction that you
Mm,
want.
Tristan Tate has a famous quote. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tristan Tate, but he
Mhm.
says, "Live half of your life like you're going to live another 15 years, and live the other half like you're only going to live another 15 days." So it's kind of like
Yeah.
puts that together and summarizes that concept. That's amazing, man. So now we spent some time talking about your upbringing, how you went from hospitality to real estate. You got Rookie of the Year award your first year in real estate. I'm assuming you were in real estate sales. You got your license as a realtor.
Yep.
And we're doing that, right?
Yeah.
What were some of your struggles? Because I feel we live in a world where everyone's just constantly posting their highlights. Everyone looks successful. Everyone's life is doing great. But what were some of the struggles that you encountered during these phases of life?
Well, I mean, I remember the first day I walked into the office as a newly licensed agent and just sitting down. And I chose a firm that was, you basically had to pay to work there, and it
Wow.
was Remax. So you pay your desk fees, but you get all your commission. But they don't do anything for you. They don't buy your business cards. They don't buy your signs. So I've just invested all this money, and I'm going. And I sit down, and I'm like, what do I do? And it occurred to me there was an old broker sitting next to me. It's like you gotta get to work. You have to go. It really dawned on me at that point. No one was going to do anything for me. Just because you're in real estate doesn't mean that you're in transactions. Doesn't mean that you have clients. You're just anybody can get a real estate license. So now it was the biggest challenge was like now I got to figure this out next. And to
Mhm.
me, I was excited about it. So I said I got to get business. How am I going to get business? And then I said, well, my business is downtown. I'm going to become the expert in downtown. And so I'm going to be the smartest guy in the room when it comes to talking about downtown. And I want to be the name that comes to top of mind when anybody thinks about downtown Wilmington and has a question about it and wants to know what's going on, what's coming up, what's in this building, what business is here. And so that was my plan. And it just became execution at that point, and then that led to relationships and transactions. But that was the first kind of realization where I realized this is a new chapter. I can go in the bar and pour a drink and make $5 right there. But here
There you go.
I'm trying to make a $30,000 commission. So now I have to plant these seeds and water them and it's going to take months for them to start to.
That's so cool, man. As you're speaking, or as people speak in general, I tend to really deep dive and like annotate like things that they say, because I'm genuinely such a curious person. And something that provoked my thought while you were sharing that is, I believe there are habits, I would say more for like a realtor, because, or any commission based job, medical device sales. I was just connected with somebody that does that today.
Mhm.
Medical device sales, insurance agent or realtor, where it's like the outcome you live is solemnly based off of your habits, right?
Mhm.
Because you are always working for the commission. It's a longer time horizon in terms of payment and stuff like that. So you have to be very consistent with the good habits. So in a universal way, maybe not habits that just apply to a realtor, but what are some of the habits you needed to install in your life to become rookie of the year?
It's funny to say to even have brought that up because that was literally like a lifetime ago. It was, I mean, the habits, success is not necessarily sexy. It's the boring, repetitive, disciplined actions that will help you really achieve major milestones in business. So it's not, like you referenced before, the flashy cars and the watches and all that stuff. And there'll be a time when you can have all that stuff, but in order to get that and to have earned it and to have it paid for versus to have it rented for
Of
purposes of a picture, you have to put in the work, man. This is the one
course.
thing that so many people just miss the point. Like you got to actually do the work to get the result. And so it's one thing that I heard a long time ago, and it definitely stuck with me. And it's just the most simple truth is that like 99% of success is just showing up. And so all you've got to do is just get out of bed and go to work every single day in whatever trade or whatever business you're in or whatever line you're in. You just have to show up and you have to be there early, and you have to be success rewards confidence, and success rewards interaction. You can't go to work and then you go sit in the corner and be like, I'm at work. You have to insert yourself into the environment, and you got to play the game. That's just it. And
Mm,
you got to swing at every pitch that comes at you, and never discount a person or an opportunity or a situation. You have to always look at it through that lens. And that's it, man. It's really, there's not a secret magic pill. It just, you have to show up every day. And I'm sure we've all have friends who have tried 100 different businesses and get rich quick schemes, and this is going to be the next big thing. It's crypto or it's cannabis or whatever, and then 6 months later they're doing something else.
something else, yeah.
One thing that I've just always, I mean, I've been in real estate for 23 years. I committed. I said this is going to be my career, and I've showed up every day since then.
There you go. Another quote that's super powerful. Alex Ramosi shares, it's extraordinary people don't do extraordinary things. They just do extraordinary things for an extraordinary amount of time. And I
Yeah.
feel like you are a sum of that. You said you've been in the real estate game for 23 years, and it's just you doing the ordinary things for an extraordinary amount of time. So I think there's big credit to that, because people in my age range, I would even say up to 30, man, because like the way social media is now and the way my generation is and generation right before me, like a lot of us aren't, I guess, fully developing career business wise until maybe mid even.
Hmm.
But you also have the 21-year-old multimillionaires off of some AI app. I won't even get into that.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
reason why I say that is because we are sold this dream that overnight success exists. Um, Buy this $10,000 course and you'll start making 100K a month in 90 days.
Mm.
Subscribe to this channel to make your first $1 million in a month. And it's like, we're indoctrinated with all this false concept of what it takes to be successful and what time horizon success is built on, where it's like when you're actually in the trenches playing the game, as you referred to it, you
Mhm.
start to realize, like, dang, I'm still going to be successful, but it's going to require a whole new identity of me. And with that identity is also associated beliefs that I have to break from what social media has been lying to me about these last couple of years.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
It's very, very much so, and that was well said, Lou, because it's exactly that. It's, but I will say this, you can buy the course for 10 grand, and you can actually make the $1 million, but you have to do the work that the course says. That's the disconnect that a lot of people can't wrap their heads around. They'll buy the course and they think, great, when does this $1 million show up? It's like, no, you have to actually execute what the
Yeah.
course is telling you, because all the information in the world is out there. But and people will buy it, and people sell courses, and that's its own separate, enterprise. But the real work is done in execution, and you cannot buy that. There is no fast track, no highway to that. That just is slow, low heat, constant movement. Like when you're making scrambled eggs, you just got to keep doing it. And so I encourage folks that are looking for something fast. And I'll preface it with, you're growing up in a different time than I did. You know, Instagram didn't exist when I was your age and these things. So there are certain things that, there are people going out and making money overnight. And what I would say to that is, A, bravo to you. But B, some of the folks that look like they're doing it overnight have been doing it for a decade.
There you
Like
go.
Hermosi is a good example. Like you said, that guy was like a nobody because he had his nose in the gym, grinding, doing everything. And then he just got a social media presence and exploded. But that guy has been working his tail off for a decade.
Yes.
And I would say to some of those folks maybe that did make overnight success, if that happens to you, a lot of times, unless you put in the reps and you've done the work, you don't recognize what you have,
Of
and you tend to
course.
lose it a lot quicker. You don't know how to hold on to it. It slips. It's money, easy money, comes and goes, and it goes right through your fingers. If it's a one hit wonder or an overnight sensation or some pump and dump scam. So, there's nothing wrong with taking the slow and steady route.
Of course. I think I have this conversation with a friend of mine. He's 44 and he's an entrepreneur, and growing up there wasn't so much opportunity. Like now we're living in the golden age. Real estate's doing great. There's opportunity with AI. It's a golden era for that, where now the what's in lack is focus, what's abundant is opportunity and noise.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've learned these last couple of years, from like 18 to now 22, was when I first started in the game at 18, I wanted to own it all, dude. I
Yeah.
wanted to set up lemonade stands. I want to have vending machines, ATMs, all this. I wanted to do everything.
Yeah.
And this friend I'm referring to is a mentor of mine. And he said, dude, the first million is made when you vertically integrate and focus on one thing. And then after you made your first million, that's when you start diversifying. So I took that with a grain of salt. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, yeah, I took that advice and I applied it to my life.
Mhm.
But subconsciously, I started to do that. And I was able to 5x my income just from focusing. So
Yeah.
now that's a trait that I almost like, I will tattoo to myself that it's like, hey, I may not be doing the sexy thing, but I will do the boring thing for a long time horizon. And that's how I will beat everyone. And that's how I will truly create my version of success. So I think what you were sharing is right in line with that. I'm gonna dig a little deep here. So when we were in Punta Cana, I remember we were doing a workshop, and you referred to a time in life where you might have struggled or lost everything. Do you want to give the audience some spotlight on that?
Yeah. I mean, it was 2007. I was heavily invested in real estate in 2006, 7, 8, because I was a new agent and selling and making a lot of money. And I was an investor at that point too. And that was just a situation where I just flew too close to the sun. I thought I was hot shit. I had a brand new Beamer, had a 5-bedroom beach house with an elevator. I think I had 14 properties at that point. And I thought I was, the Donald Trump of the day before he got into politics. Let me preface it with
Wolf of
that.
Wall Street.
Yeah. So, and then when the market crashed, it all came tumbling down. All the notes I had came due. All the adjustable rate mortgages I had doubled or tripled. Um, and suddenly I couldn't generate income fast enough to pay all this debt. And so I filed bankruptcy in 2010, chapter 13. And it was a very dark period where I went from hero to zero, and mentally, physically, everything. It was just a complete slice. It wasn't even a slice. It was a humble pie that I was forced to eat. And, looking back on it now, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm glad it happened. I learned so much from it, and it gave me the tenacity. And I was really proud of myself to have come through that. and then built something even bigger since then. But that was my darkest day, dude. But the moral of that story is I'm still standing. And so it's it was an experience, but I look at it now, it emboldened me, not in the sense to where you just have this, that's the one thing about the United States, you have the ability to file bankruptcy, but that
Yeah,
is not that should never be an option. It
of
should never be
course.
a consideration. It's a terrible, terrible event, and it will follow you around for a decade. So
Wow, man. I,
uh,
I actually didn't even know that.
I mean, you can't borrow money for 7 years, and even after that, there's still some banks that won't touch me if I
Wow.
disclose that to them. Granted, I've got a net worth that's handsome, but there's certain banks that just have guidelines. Just it's like a scarlet letter. So
Wow.
it's
That
important
that's
to take it
that's
seriously.
interesting.
Yeah.
I want to zoom in to those emotions you felt when you said you went from hero to zero. Like, what did that look like? The day that maybe you officially filed bankruptcy in the real estate space. Like, what were you going through mentally? What did that look like?
I mean, it was mainly. I mean, it was embarrassing because it's a small town. I knew everybody. It wasn't something that it's public record. So it wasn't, but I wasn't out telling people about it. I was trying to maintain an air because I always knew, like, in real estate, I bought the Beamer because they want to affiliate with successful people. They
Of
want to be
course.
near someone who's doing good or doing better than them or where they want to go. So I always had that air I tried to exude because that helped me grow my business. So after that, I almost felt like a fraud. So that was a tough pill to swallow, but I stayed in real estate because it was still the biggest shovel I had to dig out. But I went and ran a dive boat for a couple years and just was like,
Wow.
I need to just breathe. I need to realize that life is not over. Um, I
Mm,
can rebuild. I need to be strategic and figure out how I can rebuild. And yeah, there was times where I was like, well, it looks like I'm just going to be a freaking poor bum, and maybe I'll just run the dive boat for the rest of my life.
of course.
Or maybe I'll
Yeah.
go back in the bar business. So, um, there's a lot going around in the head at that point in time, but, um, I was smart about it. Surrounded myself with some smart people and figured out how to just start solving problems, starting with the smallest one up to the biggest one. And I just put my head down, dude, and said, I've got to, that's the only way I've got to go.
Exactly. The reason why I asked that is because I used to think that success was an infinite thing. And I started to realize that success is a very much finite thing. And there's a meme out there. I'm sure you'll see it on a motivational page. It's like ownership or entrepreneurship is a lease and rent is due every single day.
Yeah.
And that's something. Thank you for letting me share that, because that's intimate and that's very transparent of you to give the emotions that you felt in that phase of your life.
Mhm.
But there may be times where someone is in a business kicking ass, taking names, like you said, has the nice house and the BMW, and then something happens, things go south, and now you're in a place where you're looking up and you're like, dang, I was all the way up there and now I'm all the way down here. And the only thing you have in that moment is the foundation that that business that just crashed was built off of, which are the habits, the beliefs,
Yeah.
the specific knowledge. And that's something I'm focusing on right now where it's like, hey, I can get into any venture that I choose to go down, but really what makes that venture successful or unsuccessful is the foundation that I have. Am I honing in on my specific knowledge? Are my habits positive?
Mhm.
Is my foundation solid? Because no pun intended, but just like real estate, like a home, if you don't have a solid foundation, doesn't matter how nice the home is.
Yeah, man.
So that's why I wanted to kind of put that under the spotlight for a little bit, because I feel that that could serve as true insight for anyone that's looking to create wealth through entrepreneurship, maybe already an entrepreneur and has a business,
Mhm.
or people who may be struggling a little bit in business, where they could say, hey, this guy's been there, he knows what rock bottom feels like, but now look at where he's at, and I'm sure you're 10 times better now than what you were, right?
I mean, I'm 1,000 times better
There you
than I
go.
was that day, but
There you go.
it's a great point that you said, and the folks, in your community that believe that you have to have this foundation, you have to have these habits, you have to have the discipline, That's the stuff you can't buy. You have to organically develop internally. And then when things go wrong, they can't take that away from you, dude. So it's like they took away my money, they took away my house, they took away my car, they took away everything, but they couldn't take that away. And if they could, that's a different story. But those are things that are in me. And so
Of course.
so that should be the first thing that you build and develop in your organization, and all of us as men who are trying to build something big, that's where you got to start. And like you said, it's the cheesy, if the house doesn't have a good foundation, it'll crumble. So you want lots of rebar, you want concrete, you want steel, baby.
Exactly.
And then after that, dude, that's they can't knock that down.
There you go, man. Let's fast forward into what are you doing now in the real estate space? This is actually educational for me too, because I know that you have a company that's called Aloha Wilmington, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm out in the Carolinas. What are you doing in the real estate space right now?
So we do um, brokerage. So we help people buy and sell real estate. So I list properties, represent buyers and sellers, just traditional brokerage. We also have a division that does property management. So we manage about 170 units of commercial and residential real estate. So we do all the leasing, we do all the tenant interfacing. We have third party clients for that. I'm working now with my development company on building a 10-unit multifamily complex in historic downtown that's just gotten out of TRC, which is great. Doing that, I've been developing one or two projects per year of like new construction development, either to put into my portfolio that I own or to sell, and then just as on spec basically. This project I'm building now, the gantry, is going to be something that I'll plan to hold for a while. And I'm unsure now. My pro forma is a little sideways because of the construction costs. So I'm toying with the idea of venturing into a boutique hotel with that. So that could be interesting. And then I'm also working on my own personal portfolio of holdings. And so I'm working to manage the real estate that I own, and also deploying capital into doing some private lending to other investors and investing in some other funds and syndications and some private equity. So I'm in the game. I'm all in, dude, but I
You're
love
all in.
this stuff, man. I
There you
love
go.
it. And I have a terminal case of shiny object syndrome, but the good news is it's all under the real estate umbrella. So,
There you go.
so that's what I tell myself.
What do they say? There's 37 income streams in real estate. There's 37 ways to make money in real estate. Is that a thing?
I believe
I've
it.
heard of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard of that recently. Let's give the people what they want, Christian. What are the numbers? You said you're doing brokerage, property management, a little bit of development.
Yeah.
What are your numbers right now
As far as what
in
specifically?
terms of maybe? So I'm very new to the real estate space, but
Yeah.
in terms of maybe like revenue or transactions.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the brokerage, I traditionally historically sell anywhere from probably 10 to 15 million dollars a year in real estate. I'm just representing buyers and sellers. One of the better years I had a couple back was, I think we did like 30 million buyers and sellers. So that's all just brokerage commission. The management company, we that's a pretty healthy like recurring revenue with that number of units. Our revenue is about 4 million annually. The development stuff, it depends on the project specifically. If I'm doing, depending on the project and if it's going to be something I dispose of or keep and hold, it's tough to really nail that down. The project I'm developing now is going to be about a $3.5 million development for the gantry. And then I've got my holdings. I've got about 70 properties that I own. So they treat me pretty well, but they keep me very busy. And I'm always trying to identify new things to collect and put into my portfolio. So
That's sweet, man. Came a long way from being the bar owner, right?
bro, long way, dude. But I still go home at night to a glass of whiskey. So
There
I
you
still
go.
I still keep that with me. Just not as
There you
much
go.
as it used to be.
Dude,
Yeah.
let's drive it home. I want to make this a thing in future podcasts when I have great guests. Well, every guest is going to be great in their own
Yeah.
niche. But if you had a conversation with 21-year-old Christian Cardamone, what are you telling that guy?
I would tell him to take better care of himself physically. And I
Mm,
know this is a hard step to the left based on what we've just been talking about, but I always took care of myself, but I would have started sooner and paid more attention to that, because that's just, without your health, none of this matters at all. I would say that. And I would say uh, I would have started educating myself more, and I would have gotten a mentor sooner. I think getting in the room with the right people and being around people whose goals, your goals are already there, and surrounding myself with people that I could learn from and I could derive value from and I could contribute to. It was always a bit of a selfish endeavor when I was younger. And the biggest piece of advice I would give to anyone that's, in their 20s is just get in the right rooms, man. And you got to shake a lot of hands, but you're as dumb as it is and it sounds, your network is your net worth. And I can definitely attest to this. You're always one relationship away from changing your life in so many different ways, whether it be through finances or faith or family or whatever. And so you just gotta, don't be afraid to talk to people and put yourself out there and get a mentor and get a coach.
There you go. That's amazing, man. My life so far has been made based off of relationships. So I definitely believe that proximity is power,
Yeah.
and be very intentional and mindful of the rooms you're putting yourself into. With that being said, man, how can people work with you, or where can they connect with you?
If you want to talk to me, reach out to me, send me a message. I respond when I can at Aloha Wilmington on Instagram. My personal handle is at Captain Cardamone on Instagram, and that's where I drive most of my traffic. You could just Google my name, Christian Cardamone, North Carolina, or I'll probably pop up. It's kind of a unique name, but I love talking about real estate. I love young, hungry people that want to get into the industry. I'm not a coach, but I really enjoy sharing this information and trying to provide value so that people can learn from my mistakes. I haven't done it all, but I've done a lot, and so yeah, I'd encourage your listeners, if they want to reach out, I'd love to have a chat with you.
There you go, man. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into episode 2 of the One Club podcast with my man, Christian Cardamone. We dropped a lot of insight, a lot of value. I hope that you could take one thing out of this episode and apply it to your life and be closer to the 1%, which is holistic success. Christian, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you for all the gems that you dropped. And I'm sure I'll see you in person soon, right?
You got it, my man. Thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Thanks, man.